you?
I am good. I am honestly so excited to talk to you.
Me
I know
too.
it sounds like I would say that to every guest, but I've been listening to your music literally all week. I am so, I'm obsessed. Yeah, I'm a fan. So
Oh, oh,
I
thank you.
am I'm
Thank you.
excited to talk to you. But before we begin, I guess if people are kind of watching this back on YouTube, I'm going to introduce the show a little so people understand what the show is about and kind of my own personal journey into music. So I am a singer-songwriter from London. My name's Axel Hart. I began singing actually only during lockdown, so this is all new to me, very, very new to me. But I loved music. I was always quite a creative person, but always analytical as well. So I've always trying to navigate myself in the journey of life, I guess. But lockdown was kind of like, you know what? Go for your dream, do something creative, enjoy your life, because we don't know what's going to happen. So I explored music. I really enjoyed that creative space of writing and performing and singing. It was such a freeing experience. But I knew I didn't know enough, as a newbie in the music industry and where the music industry is today. It's a lot to learn, a lot of hats to wear. It's difficult. So I kind of released 3 singles, had a great experience with that. Started this show to connect with other artists like yourself. And this year, I really want to understand, especially with someone like yourself who's had a career that spans for a long time. You've been in music for such a long time. There's so much wisdom, so much knowledge that you can share with me and other artists that may be watching this back. So this is the purpose of the show, and you're like the ideal guest for it. So I'm excited to talk to you. Maybe introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, how long you've been doing music, and yeah, we can go from there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I'm gonna have so much to say about you too because I've been checking you out as well since we have connected. But my name is Michele Thomas. I am a jazz artist and vocalist, recording artist in Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. Born and raised in Chicago, on the west side of the city, and I have. I'm also a teacher and an educator. Um, and this is it's been my life. I grew up. I my it's not a spiel, it's the truth, but it's like I just grew up in music. It was all around me. I was immersed in it. And I grew up in the great gospel legacy that is here in Chicago. One of just the many cities in the United States that have a deep history with so many gospel artists. And because my father was a minister and my mother was a self-taught pianist and played and sang in church, uh, they were serious. They loved their music. I'm one of 6 kids, and by the time me and my twin brother came around, there was a house full of just LPs across the wall of all kind of gospel LPs, and it's only been in recent years I've thought how serious my parents had to be because there was a piano in our house. They invested in a piano, and they invested in a B3 Hammond organ as well. So we had 2 big instruments in the house for people to play. We had records galore, and yeah, it was all around me. And then just having the church background, being in church all the time and singing in choirs. I always had every opportunity singing in a choir, singing solos, singing with smaller groups, and just learning about music. And I truly loved it. I was at home. Even though it felt very innocuous to me, it was like I was like, no, this is normal as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't it wasn't until I got older when I realized just how unique and special that was. Like that is not the average experience. So I feel as if I attribute a lot of that to just being a foundation for me
Mm,
in a lot of ways. Um, and I really try not to take it for granted, especially in teaching and being an educator, because I've through the years try to look at my experience and dissect it in terms of how did I learn how to do something? How did I learn how to make this happen? And and luckily that was also something that I had a passion for. I had a passion for like communicating with others and transferring that knowledge to others. That meant something to me to be able to help someone else understand how to make music, how to take some steps or put a system to it, and help them to come along. So, um, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been the foundation of this, just what's helped me to have a career in the first place.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
going through,
I
go ahead.
Yeah, I was reading up. I mean, obviously you've kind of grown in and around church music, and your dad was a preacher as well, as you mentioned. It's gospel music has been a foundation for so many other artists out there as well. But I was reading, obviously, on your website, some of the challenges maybe sometimes venturing into music that isn't church based, religious based. How was that journey? And how have you kind of navigated in that space of jazz now compared to, I mean, you still have elements of it in your music, of course, but what was that challenge like?
Oh, I- I mean, it, it was as difficult as it needed to be. I think anytime you are surrounded in a culture that kind of says, here's how things are, and it
Right,
presents it to you, and it says, it's like, this is what music is. And, you know, growing up in a Pentecostal church, especially for the generation of my parents, they grew up uh, in the generation where it's just like, jazz is the devil's music. Oh my gosh. It's like, you don't get into that. You don't listen to anything. I wasn't allowed to listen to anything else but like religious based
right,
music. Um, but I, it never stops anyone, I don't think, from continuing to search, because you keep wanting to see, like, it's like, well, it's got to be more to it. It's like, that can't just be the answer alone.
right,
um and I feel as if so much of the gospel music I grew up with specifically, my generation, jazz was already so heavily infused in gospel and contemporary gospel
right,
music. I was hearing it, I was already being influenced by it. So I think it was a natural progression that eventually, as I started to hear more types of music, as I got to hear more classical music or other genres of music, that would eventually lead me to being involved with it more. When I was in high school, I asked to join our jazz band as a vocalist, and I'd never done that before, but I wanted to try it, and thankfully, I had a wonderful teacher and mentor in high school who saw that interest, and wanted to help cultivate it. And so
mm,
he brought me along the way and introduced me to Ella Fitzgerald and all these. And then I had a lot of friends who were also just jazz nerds. I think high school is the time
right.
when that happens for some reason. If you're gonna get into jazz, like
Gonna be in high school,
like,
right?
yeah, it happens in high school. If you're looking to, like, be different, you're looking to like, what is gonna make me me. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's along with that, it was just little by little, and then just a rush of just like curiosity and wanting to hear more. And before I knew it, I was just, in that world.
Yeah, I mean, you also did a BA in music as well. You've kind of spent a lot of your time studying music.
Mhm.
A lot of people kind of go back and forth in kind of, some people are naturally gifted in music or have that rhythm or have that kind of like amazing pitch and beautiful voices and knowing timing of how to play instruments. Do
Mhm.
you agree with that, or do you think anyone, because I feel music sometimes is like a flow of things. It's not just sonically, it can do other things to you,
Uh,
mentally kind of get you into the right space, and it can make you feel a certain way. So do you think you have to be at a certain place before you can explore music, or do you think anyone really can do music?
oh my gosh, that's such an awesome question. I love that, and I try to live in that, because I do believe everyone can and should be involved in it in some way. Um, I feel like I was always down the middle, because I was never. I had a certain amount of talent, but I by no means was like a phenom, you know. And you see sometimes you, I guess in this world of music, and the culture of music, that's what gets the attention a lot of times. Like someone has to be a progeny, they have to be like, you know, a prodigy,
Mm.
and be like, oh that's excellence, that's musical excellence. And and we have to remember that that's just not the only representation of
Mm.
participation in music, and it shouldn't discourage people. I hate to see it sometimes when it discourages people from getting involved, because they're just like, well, I'm not going to be that. How can, you know, how can I even compare to
Yeah.
that? And we do this whole comparison thing. And so, and I've also experienced it in terms of receiving it in my own education. Sometimes when you see that bad energy that comes from some educators and everything, in terms of that judgment, and it
Mm.
misses the point. It goes right over the head of like,
You're right.
what is, what's the core of why you're involving yourself with music, and music at its heart, this creative energy, this self-expression. It's about your humanity. The reason that we
Hmm.
love it, the reason that we're drawn to it, is that it is life affirming for
Right.
everyone.
Right.
um yeah. And
You
so
had
like,
you had a wonderful quote on your website, which you mentioned about, you know, art being life affirming for an artist, I guess for anyone really, but then also helping you reach your highest potential through expressing yourself freely, which
mhm,
I think first of all was a beautiful quote. It's incredible how people think art really has a right answer. I think as a
we're very,
listener, you listen to music, you know, in a completely different way to maybe how you would explore music,
yeah.
and how we consume art is completely different. Like how your music, how even your creation of music makes you feel is going to be completely different to anyone else out there in the world, and arguably uniquely in the world. Like even if I say, oh no, I get how you wrote that, I understand those emotions, I
Hmm.
don't know your experience, I cannot fully, you know, connect to that. So I love that quote that you have on your website, and I agree. You know, some of it sometimes in the music industry, you kind of get wrapped up in feeling like you need to meet certain standards and targets, and
Hmm.
that's not what music really is about. It's all about expression, and that was for me as well. You know,
Hmm.
exploring it this late in my career was like, actually I'm not doing it because I want to become a pop star. I want to do it because I enjoy music. I enjoy expression, and I
Yeah.
really have a story to share sometimes. So
Yeah.
I think that's really, really cool. And one of the other things, sorry, that you mentioned on your website was that a community has played a huge role for
Hmm.
you in your life. How important is it for you to kind of build that around you, and how is your messaging really connected with your audience from your experience?
It's always been important, because again, I look at every step along the way of where I am at this moment, and I can literally just see the people who have helped to make that happen. Like I have these memories of just the people who have been instrumental, whether it was like words of encouragement, whether it was monetary support, whether it was like, you know, just let me hang out with them at their house like for a few nights, whether whatever it was. Along the way, it was these people in this community that affirmed that yes, we see you, we validate what you're doing, you're bringing you're bringing something to us as a community, and we want to make sure to support you in that, and embrace you, and make sure that you can keep doing what you're doing.
Right.
um and that's so grounding, because again, as you're talking about, just in the music industry, where there gets to be this emphasis on fandom and like fame, and it's about how many people are kind of looking at you. um and I think we're getting into a new time where people are starting to realize it's like that that may not be enough. That may,
Yeah.
it could be fleeting, and maybe that doesn't have to look that way for every single artist,
Right.
because if you are doing something of value, which you're always assuming that you are,
Mhm.
and it's a value to your community, that's that's it. Like that's,
Right.
you work on that. You work on that part of it, and continuing to be of service. I'm grateful for my church upbringing, because I think gospel music really helped to ground me in that idea of like music being of service
Mm,
to people. When you sing, when I've sung for funerals or sung for services or sung for
yeah.
whatever, it's like it has a purpose in uplifting people and encouraging people and helping us all to like live this life as well as we can. And you know, that keeps you grounded where I don't want to get caught up oftentimes in like the stuff of
Mm,
the music business, because there's a lot that can pull you away and pull you away from that grounding and make you doubt
right,
yourself and compare yourself.
right.
um but I feel like community has helped to continue to ground me in that. Whenever I start to get worried about that stuff, it's just like, no, I got to
Yeah.
remember where I came from and who's helped me to be here.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. And I think for even for artists that sometimes come across as people who want to sell loads of records, want to have stadium tours, essentially,
Wrong with
really,
that. Yeah, I mean, like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
right, right.
Every artist would love to do that, but I think at the core of it, they still want that sense of community. They still want to be able to connect with loads of people. Maybe for
Mhm.
some people that can be fulfilled with just a couple of people that get
Yeah,
what their music is about and
yeah,
they can relate to it. But unfortunately, the industry, I think, turns it into a business. So
sure.
whereas art is expression and freedom and connection, now it's become sales and fan bases and, you know, just very monetary.
Yeah.
So it's very warped that way. Has that kind of stopped you from maybe exploring more commercial music or commercial
Um,
sound?
Not necessarily, and I even to speak to that too, because I want to say I feel like there's a fine line.
Yeah.
And I just, both for myself and in my teaching, I've just tried to learn to like have eyes wide open about all of it, because it's not that it's anything inherently wrong.
Yeah.
um there's things that are inherently wrong with the industry, but there's, it's not like the wish or the desire to have a vibrant and rigorous music career is anything wrong with that. In terms of how that's executed and what your expectations are about it,
Mm,
what you want from it, and how realistic all that is, if it aligns with like your values, that's really the thing that has to be navigated more carefully with it.
right.
um because it's so easy to get swept up into what is basically capitalized, like you said, it's just like it's business, and it becomes about that suddenly, and it can very
Mm,
easily take you away from why you're doing this, what the
right.
music is supposed to be. And so I just always want to make sure that, just to toe that line. um and even for my own like music, I mean, I chose jazz because I felt like it represented, um like, it gave me the chance to have the freedom of everything. Like
Mm,
I feel like it's, to just say it, I'm a gospel artist or just a pop artist, I feel is I never felt like I totally fit perfectly in any one of those slots.
right. Right.
And whereas I feel like the history of jazz has been so progressive and so all encompassing, and it takes in all the influences,
Right.
um, that's where I felt like I fit. And then knowing that, then looking then at the business of it, I was just like, yeah, there's no rock stars in jazz necessarily.
But
Like, I'm not gonna be going
But I do think there is you know, maybe rock stars is not the right term or you know whatever it is, but I think jazz as a genre has such a free flowing sound. You know, it's such a collaborative kind of music. You know,
yeah,
with a lot of pop music, for example, and again, each to their own. I kind of love pop music. I'm not gonna lie. I think
so
it's
do
great
I.
for
Oh,
what
totally. Yeah,
you know for what it is. I think it's great, but in terms of jazz, I think there's like a harmony with musicians, like the instrumentalists. There's a vibe alongside them. You know, it's not. Here's an amazing singer. She's gonna sing. The backing is fine. It doesn't really matter as much as her voice, or vice versa. It's
yeah,
more, okay, we're all this in this together. There is a bit of a fun element to it.
yeah.
So that's why I think as a genre, it's very underrated. You know, it's very underrated. I was checking out your SoundCloud, and honestly, I was so glad that the music wasn't like 2 minutes long or like 1 minute long, because I, you know, you want that full experience. It was such a
Yeah.
great pleasure to listen to you know your albums, which we'll get into in a second. But you know, the length of the music just makes you feel kind of like, as a listener, like that's good, you know, money well spent if people are investing in your music. So
Mm.
I think that that's really, really cool. Have you have you kind of consciously gone for your, you know, when you're working on your album, music that does kind of work with specific instrumentalists, or have you kind of written first and wanted a message first before
Mm.
putting that out?
You know, with this album, this was my songwriting debut,
Mm.
full songwriting debut. I'd done a little bit of writing, of lyric writing in the last two albums, but this one was like full songs. So I feel as if I'm still kind of learning. I think the process was so much different for every song I wrote that was on this album. And so some of them lyrics came first, some of them melody and lyrics a little bit together, and then I kept kind of piecing
Mm.
together as I went. Some of it was like I was just playing chord progressions and just like, man, this sounds cool. I like this. I don't know what I'm gonna put to this yet, but like it's gonna be in this song somehow. And then in terms of the instrumentation, the musicians that are on this album have been musicians I've been working with for many, many, many years, and who I just love, and who I wanted to continue recording with them because I feel like that's been like an arc of growth too, just to like have that family of musicians to kind
Mm.
of keep growing with. And one of which is my husband, which you might have heard in the background here in terms of drumming. He's the drummer, and he produced
Amazing.
this album as well, and did a lot of arrangements on the album. And so you know, we've been obviously working together for umpteenth years, and so I was just that really, I guess I'm used to that. I don't know if you call it traditional instrumentation, but just that full rhythm section that you often have
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
jazz in terms of upright bass and drums and guitar,
yeah.
and piano, and and so like that, I feel like they did such amazing things with the music. Like I might have had an idea in my head, but I don't know if I was thinking totally how they would fully flesh it out, and then they
Right.
exceeded expectations.
Yeah, but I think that's what's amazing about it, because it's like a harmony between every element. You know, if you listen to the same songs again, you kind of catch something different each time. Like, oh, that was a cool lick on the drums or the guitar,
Yeah.
whatever it is. You know, you when you're listening to music, you start to pick up certain things, or you know, my favorite personal. Actually, let's say what the album title is. It's called The Assumption. An amazing album. My favorite, Nocturne, and also
Oh.
the Dark. I love Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was that's my favorite. So not that I'm
Oh,
gonna say,
yeah.
can you make it a single, please? But like I've been listening to that like so much. I think it's such
Oh, wow.
a cool. Is the whole album is really a cool record, which I know you said that it's around, you know, trust and love. It's the assumptions we make around those two, but it really explores a lot of emotions. I think there's such a unique ebbs and flows in some of the songs, and Dark, I think, for me personally, was the, you know, the perfect track to do that. It's so emotionally filled, but you kind of are going on a journey even in the song. And
Mm.
um it's really, really spectacularly written. So I'm very surprised that this is your first project, full project, even. That's there. What, when you listen back to it, are there tracks that you're like, I'm really proud of that record? Or, I mean, I'm sure you'll
Mm.
say that for every song on the album, but are there particular ones that mean a bit more to you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess there's a couple, and I think that's one of them. Certainly, I love Dark as much as that song is about a lot of anguish, but uh, that was coming from a really deep place in my soul, just over just the pain of just like racism and colorism
Mhm.
and issues of just cultural hegemony of whiteness in our country. And it really was. In myself, I was just like, I'm done. With,
Mm.
it doesn't really matter overall, but it's just like I need to make a statement about this, and we need to start turning things around, or at least start. um, I wanted to at least give my contribution. And it's just like, how do we change this narrative? Um,
Mm,
and I just began to think about all the ways in which darkness and black and dark skin and everything associated with that has come to be, noted as something bad or terrible. And I wanted to just speak on the deep, like, no, you don't understand. This is in the cosmos. This is darkness is what gives life. You don't even get it. Um,
right, right.
like
I
it's the
think
opposite
it's super.
thing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's super interesting. I've spoken to quite a lot of I mean, from all minority groups, but particularly obviously Black women artists who are kind of voicing their opinion on these kind of topics. It's obviously I don't want to even say it's a current topic, because this has been something that's been happening for a long time, and these
Yeah.
feelings are not today or when
Yeah.
the album was written. These
Right. Right.
feelings are sometimes in certain, structures and the way things are kind of played out from the day you're born, right? There's battles that you have to fight from just not having a choice and being born into a certain family. So
Yeah.
it's sad, but I'm glad that more people are kind of having those conversations. Even within minority communities, like
Yeah.
from my own community, there is an issue with colorism which needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's so great that you're able to kind of put those emotions down. It's a very heavy topic,
Mm-hmm.
but you can feel that in the music. You can feel that actually there may be occasions where, although we can't relate to it, but we can know how you are feeling in a certain moment, which I think is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, have you ever, I mean, jazz is a very good genre. I think it's kind of based off Black people's music. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's well, a lot of music is anyway, but particularly jazz, I think it stayed true to that kind of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Have you witnessed any battles, kind of walking into a room with specific musicians or producers? Because I know that obviously happens in a couple of other genres where it's not as dominant. But have you ever kind of had those awkward, racist or maybe if ignorant situations
Oh,
in music, particularly?
for sure, for sure. Uh, in jazz specifically, we that's also been discussions that have been going on in the jazz community. And if you look to like right now, there's a famous drummer here in the States, Terry Lynn Carrington, who started a organization at Berklee School of Music to address like gender issues in jazz specifically,
Mm.
and really revealed so much of the history of just dealing with gender and sexism in it. And I definitely have experienced that as a woman, as a Black woman in jazz. It's embedded. It's never like very obvious or overt, but it's kind of embedded a lot of times in ability and aptitude in terms of how and this happens with racism everywhere, but it's like where your credibility in terms of your um, talent, in terms of your skill level, and what you're able to do is questioned or invalidated
Mm.
because of the body you sit in, because of you, like just
Mm.
automatically just looking at someone, just like assuming and just kind of discrediting you right away off the bat. And it mostly comes in the form of a lot of unconscious bias, normally,
Mm.
that is just enacted through interactions, through dynamics. I was out with a friend last night just talking about women as band leaders, oftentimes where we are heading up a band, and oftentimes that we'll experience that we don't necessarily receive the same amount of respect
Mm.
from male counterparts in a band where we've hired them.
Right.
And often even be like very, like I said, it's slight and this kind of microaggressions, but it's like you can kind of be slighted or like put down by people you even hired because they don't take you as seriously as a
Mm.
band leader. They don't see you as having the same ability. And we were laughing at that. It's just like how ironic that anyone would ever have the kind of audacity to treat their boss like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's
that is
it's
a
what it's wild. It's
Yeah,
wild. I wish I could say that we've made some progression. We've come a long way, and I do believe we have,
and we have, yes.
but it's a long way to go. It's a long
Yeah,
way to go
yeah.
from what you've said and other people I've spoken to. Even pay, I think that's just a normal standard thing. As
Mm-hmm.
an artist, you should be paid equally for the job
Yeah.
that you're doing equally. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm very surprised with that, and I think well, I'm not surprised, but it's shocking every time you hear it, but you hear it so often, it's a
Yeah,
little bit numbing too. So
yeah.
yeah,
But it's
it's
it's just about, I think it's just about us all understanding as a human race. It's like it's part of the human condition that we're gonna always be
mm,
working. It, it tells you that you have to stay vigilant. It tells you that you really have to stay to your core and understanding, and when you see that happening, to be willing to speak up, to be willing to do something,
yeah.
to work on it. And I think that's oftentimes what we're just struggling with, is that it's stuff that's gone undealt with. It hasn't been addressed for so long, and then it gets to the worst possible point, which is like, like we have to work on this now. So I the older I get, the more I just kind of see that it's just,
Mm-hmm.
um for those of us who care about it and who want to, create that equity,
Right.
um we have to be willing to be strong enough to, like, stand up, talk about it, fight for it, change the
Yeah.
narrative.
I think
And
yeah. Just sorry for the comment in the chat. The interview will be on YouTube after this session, so you will be able to catch up on that. But yeah, on your point, I think it's not the responsibility for the community that is victimized in those occasions. I think it's the
mm,
responsibility for everyone to be part of that conversation. So
definitely.
I
Yeah.
am very grateful for someone like you as a Black female jazz artist to choose my platform to have the conversation about your career. I think it is a privilege, because talent is not based off anything but talent. So I am very grateful that you're on the show today.
Grateful that
And
you had me. You are already amazing on your
oh,
own.
thank you.
Like, when I've heard your story and read your story and how you've come into music, I knew, I was like, I'm so excited to be
Oh,
talking with you today, just because it's
thank you.
beautiful to be able to talk with other passionate artists, and who just are there with you. They're just like,
Get it.
I
Hopefully,
appreciate
yeah, we're there.
it.
No, oh, thank you so much. Talk to us about the album. How long was that process, recording, writing all the music? How long did that take for you? Is this something you've kind of had in the back of your mind that I wanted to do and had some lyrics done, or was this just, I'm going to sit down and write this?
I mean, it was is a few years in coming. I could honestly say it's probably over an 8-year period this was coming into being. From the time that I started writing, and I wasn't sure at the time that I was writing towards an album. I was writing because I wanted to become a stronger songwriter, and I wanted to really explore, my thoughts and how it would come out stylistically, what would happen with that. And as the songs started to be formed and I got a chance to, like, go around and actually perform them, I workshopped a lot of songs before
Mm,
everything about committing to recording them, which I'm so glad I did. Like, to me, is a really great way of ensuring that, the songs are going to go on the album. They're going to be solid,
mm,
and then about 4 or 5 years ago, as I was thinking about getting the next album started, and I knew that I wanted to go further than my last two albums, I was thinking about crowdfunding, and I'd never done it up until, that point. But I'd seen a lot of people around me doing it, and I just wanted to make sure. It's like, if I do crowdfunding, I just want to make sure I do it well. There's a lot of risk in doing it, and you want to make sure that the project gets funded, basically, and
mm,
that it doesn't come short. So I was really grateful that I got involved with, a couple of partnerships in terms of some small marketing boutique that specialized in that, and also right now my publicist, which is Matt Fripp of Jazz Fuel, and Jim and Steve from Craft Services helped me with the crowdfunding. And that was also just an incredible experience because it really did drive home the community aspect. They were so
Mm,
wonderful in how they approached it, and so yeah, we had a successful crowdfunding campaign, and we were ready to go into the studio. We had booked our dates, and that was like March. I want to say March 27th of 2020,
right.
and then a week before that, we're about to go in, the pandemic
Yeah.
happened. So, um, luckily we had, as I said, we had kind of been workshopping the music. We hadn't rehearsed everything. We were going to go into rehearsals before that recording, um, but we were just still a few steps away from actually being able to go into the studio. And then as that happened, it was just, I mean, as you know, as all of us know, it was just such an unknown at that time. It was so,
Mm,
um, it was just frightening. It was frightening and just a lot of existential dread, just like what's going to happen next.
right.
Um, and then, and later into 2020, 2021, as things were starting to kind of like get figured out in terms of the mask and the vaccines and things like that, we finally took a chance and booked our dates again at the studio, and went in during a time when this was before the vaccines and we're all masked and luckily we're all socially distanced. But we recorded the album with the band in a couple of days, and then my husband and I also have a small. He's an engineer also. He produced and
Oh,
engineered
wow.
the album. So we have a small recording studio, and we knew we were going to do a lot more of the kind of post production things from our studio. So we continue to work on it from there. Um, and yeah, just like it's all history now. But we finally made it. Like
Yeah, no,
I
it's a stellar record, I think, and the fact that you've been able to manage that from, with the pandemic going on, I think it's an amazing thing. You do mention your husband a lot. I know he plays a huge part in your life, and your
yeah.
music as well. And do you ever write about your situations together, like your personal kind of, I mean, it's about trust and love, which is
Yeah.
all relationships, right? So I'm sure
Yeah.
he has a key, he plays a key part of that in your life. Did
Hmm.
he say, no, wait, what are you talking about, that didn't happen? Or
He's like, what's that song about again?
like, do I have to apologize about something? Have I done something wrong?
You're talking about someone else. I was like, wow. Um,
Right.
I'm sure it's coming. No. um, I mean, yeah. I mean, we joke. There's a song on the album that I didn't write, but I always tell the story because it's actually an American songbook classic. Jerome Kern and Oscar Hammerstein, Nobody Else But Me. And he introduced me to the song a few years ago, but he'd only heard it as like an instrumental performance. And he was just like, this is a good song. You should like check this out and see if there's some lyrics for it. And I was like, okay. And I found out that Sarah Vaughan had sung it and Tony Bennett had sung it. And I was like, oh, cool,
Mm.
look at these lyrics. And it was actually from a musical called Showboat. And once I saw the lyrics, though, they were absolutely hilarious. And I was like, this perfectly describes our relationship. And best, one of the best lines in it is like, I'm not very bright. He's not very bright. And so, and so anytime I performed it, he's just like,
Oh, that's amazing. So do you perform a lot together? I know you did you did the Chicago Jazz Festival, you do lots of live events. Have you had now the opportunity to I mean, I don't know what the situation is like, kind of where you're at in Chicago, but has everything opened up? Is it back to normal? And what's that
um,
experience like versus recording an album? Yeah.
yeah, I still feel like it's kind of touch and go. I mean, it is opening up, and I mean, it opened up last summer too a little bit. But as you
Mm,
know, it's like with these peaks and everything that have been happening, we kind of keep going back and forth a little
right.
bit.
Right.
So it's not ever going to be back to what we knew it was, but I will say that I feel fortunate. My husband, as a drummer, he's a sideman. He works a lot, and like as things have opened up, he works with a lot of different groups too. So he freelances with them, and I do as well. And in terms of us working together and being able to book, I mean, we're starting. It seems like things are starting to pick up. Like I'm getting a lot more dates on the book right now
Mhm.
for the summer than I think I even had last year.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
I feel as if that's promising. I'm just gonna keep, knocking on wood and hoping that we kind of slowly progress.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting that prior to this, we were gigging a lot. We were doing a lot of shows in and around Chicago, and um, and it was extremely busy. And I think I definitely know, just in terms of our music scene here, that the landscape has changed in terms of the types of shows, types of gigs, types of venues, where
Right.
you might find yourself playing. But part of me also kind of feels like I'm okay with that as well. Like I'm okay with what the possibilities are, if that makes sense, of
Right.
where we might play and what we might do with live streaming, what that opened up in terms of possibilities. Um,
Mm.
once you got past just like, oh my God, like nothing's gonna ever be the same, and what are we gonna go to? And you can kind of look at the horizon and say, but there might be other openings. There's always some
Right.
other door that can open. And I think for musicians, for creatives, that's just our life, period. That's always like
Mm.
always in that adaptation. It's like, what
Right.
is next? What's this new thing? And so I am appreciating it. Like that
Right.
should be, we should be creative
Yeah.
enough. Like it shouldn't matter how we perform, where we perform. We should be able to make it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset to have. If like how exciting a performance can be. You're excited to do your first, like I did, a couple of shows recently. These are my first shows. People are coming to see me.
Mm-hmm.
That exciting feeling to kind of be in that space is so magical in a way. So if you are think of it as like, oh, okay, that didn't happen for me, but there's so many exciting things that are opening up, so many new spaces to explore, I think is so powerful. So I really hope things do get better. And I'd love if you come down to the UK. We have a jazz cafe actually in the UK. If you're ever performing there, it'd be fantastic. I'm such a fan. I'm so glad I've come across your music.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, I normally don't like fanboy like this, but I was listening to the whole album and I was just like, oh, like I would like I'm so glad I came across you. If I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't be listening to it the whole week. So yeah, I'm definitely going to follow your journey. It's been a pleasure really exploring all your music and even talking to you today. It's such a nice experience to get an artist that also lives up to that kind of like amazing music, amazing artist, and more genuine, amazing person. So it's honestly so beautiful to talk to you. The Assumption album is out now, right? You can
Yes.
find it on all streaming platforms. So if anyone is watching, please do go stream the album, support artists. They put a lot of work into this, so it's really important that we do. And it's good music. It's not just supporting for no reason. It's great music. So thank you, Michele. Let our audience know where they can find you and any final messages for any upcoming artists that you have.
Um, you can find me, my main place on the web is michellethomasmusic.com. And if you just even Google that, you'll find all my social media will pop up there too. So would love for you to follow and connect with you. And I, my final message, I don't know, for artists, um, keep doing this, keep doing what you're doing, keep finding your community. Know that you have value, you have worth in what you're doing, wherever you're at along this journey of creating, um, and that you have that inherent right to express yourself through art. There's Don't compare yourself, just do it.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing. That's a wonderful message to end on. Again, it's a pleasure talking to you. All the links will be in the description if you are watching this on YouTube. But thank you, Michele. I'm glad we've connected
Thank
and I
you.
can't wait for your next project and your musical journey following it.
Well, I'm putting it out there. I will see you in person at some point because I would
We
love to
need to.
come.
Yes, please do. Please do. If I'm in Chicago, I'll hit you up. If you're down in
Please,
London, needs to
please,
happen. Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you
No,
so much.
thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And yeah, we'll see everyone next time. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. So, have a good rest.
Bye.